Hello everyone, this is Johannes.
And this is Cerda.
And you are watching Board Gaming Ramblings.
And today we are taking a look at Barcelona.
This is a new game from Board and Dice, designed by Dani Garcia.
It plays from 1 to 4 players in 60 to 90 minutes.
Barcelona, let's go there. We haven't been there in real life.
No, we want to
really
go.
Want to go there to watch stuff and play escape rooms because it's supposed to be one of the best escape room spaces in Europe. So we really want to go there, but that's neither here nor there. Today we're going to talk about the new board game named Barcelona, which is a Euro game.
Yes.
Which is a pretty neat thing that we usually like.
Yeah.
This was a copy sent to us by the company, just so you know that before we go into the review. As always, let's start with a brief overview. If you want like a full rules thing, then we're not going to do that. We're just going to do like a overview of how the game works, especially since this might be one that most of you have not played yet. I'm going to try to do it
a little more thoroughly.
Short, but sweet.
Sweet and short, short and sweet.
Like honey. I don't know.
Go.
Yes. Barcelona is a kind of action selection game. Each round you are going to have two little citizens of different colors, so red, blue, and green. You're going to stack them on top of each other and you're going to place them on a map in one of the intersections. And that intersection is going to be pointing basically to two different actions or three in some positions on the map that you can do. Then you place it, you do those actions, and then after you have done those actions, you then have to build a building if you are able to. And to build a building, you need to use 2 or 3 citizens from different intersections around the same block to build one of the smaller or bigger, like lower level or higher level buildings, which will net you points, and also the citizens will go on a track, which is kind of the timer of the game. Different things you will do in the game. You will get resources. You will spend those resources to build public buildings, which will give you like bonus actions and victory points. You will try to move on the Cerda track to show that the planner of it all, Cerda, that you are doing what he wants you to do, what his plan was for Barcelona. You will be moving a little tram around to place passenger and score bonus actions and some victory points. You will be placing small roads and big roads. Is there more actions? Yeah, you'll be getting some scoring tiles. You can even upgrade those scoring tiles, and you can also put some cobblestones out on this little map to get some bonuses. Sounds like there's a lot of stuff there, and it is, but it's kind of not.
Yeah.
Is there any actions I have forgotten about?
I can't remember.
No, I think those are kind of the things you are going to do. The whole game is very like trying to get these kind of combos, thing that works well together, setting up for building nice buildings so that you can get victory points, moving on tracks, moving on other tracks to get even more bonuses. This game is all about getting bonuses and combos and being cool.
Yeah.
And building Barcelona. Hope that makes sense with some of the pictures that you just saw, and also that when we talk about the rest of the stuff, it makes some sense to understand things. Yes, the game also has things like this, which is artwork.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. I think the game looks nice. It has a yellow like theme of it. It's quite
and some blue.
Yeah, it's quite bright in color to be a beige Euro game. But I like the color scheme.
Yeah.
At first glance, it could look a little chaotic, but that works fine after a few plays, I think. So I like how it looks, but nothing amazing.
Yes, I enjoy the color scheme of the blue and yellow and all of that. All in all, I agree with you. I think it's fine. Nothing amazing. What about the components?
They are nice. They're classic Euro components. I think that some of the resources feel a little old school, like a classical Euro game, but they
like
work
tokens
fine.
with resources on them.
Yes.
Like one of the people we played with, like it's not even centered, so it was kind of like that felt kind of old school.
Yes.
Because we're getting so used to metal coins, or at least like these kind of wooden tokens or paper tokens, not paper tokens.
The money, or that is a money shape, or the cloth that is a cloth shape, but maybe here it's just like squares.
Maybe you get like a cloth and you have to cut it up into pieces and you get that little piece of cloth.
That would be actually cool.
And
yeah.
kind of horrible, but yeah, but it works. And I think
works.
like all in all, the presentation is nice.
Yeah.
It's not one I think that will be like, oh, this is gonna win prizes for being the best artwork or components. But it works, and it has got it's like it's more than getting the job done. I enjoy it a bit.
Yes. The game also has a rule book.
And I actually spoiled it because I showed it earlier in the review.
Yes.
So people be like, oh, you spoiled that there was a rule book for this one. The rule book is 20 pages long, which some of it is a appendix at the end. Now, this is actually a pretty straightforward game to learn. And the rounds are very simple. You're placing these 2 citizens, you're doing 1, 2, or 3 actions, like you always have 2 available. And then you have to build a building and everything that is, and all those actions are very well explained. I read this like from the beginning to the end. One thing I have to say, which I think is very nice, is that there's lots and lots of historical notes in this rulebook.
Cool.
I read half of them and then I skipped the rest because I needed to read the rulebook before we play the game. And I had other rulebooks to read as well, and I'm not that into history. But if you are into history, I think you will I learned stuff about Barcelona by just reading this.
That's fun.
That I didn't know before. And when we sometime go to Barcelona, that's actually going to be interesting to find out more about, and I wouldn't have known about that if it wasn't for this game. So I really like that. It feels like the designer really cares about this, and there's some designer notes like, oh, here I had to change the historical things because
cool.
this makes sense in the gameplay, and then this is the reasons I did it and all of that.
Yeah.
So you get like kind of a glimpse into the design choices as well.
I love that.
So this was a great rulebook, and also there's a thing with board and dice games that sometimes we are not being fans of.
Yes, and that's the lack of play rates. But now they have fixed it. In this game, they have very great play rates.
They're very good.
They're super neat. On one side, you have the whole rhyme structure, and on the other side, you have what the actions are. So I think that is super nice.
These are good play rates. Like many play rates are kind of like, oh, you get half of the information. Here you get almost all the information you need on a single little card.
I like this.
Really like that. We played the game with people, and it took time.
Yes.
We played the game 2 and 4 players, didn't get a chance to play it with 3. It took us, the first play was almost 2 hours. That was 4 people, and then 4 people took about 90 minutes after that. And also 2 people took us like an hour 20 minutes. So it wasn't that much shorter than the 4-player game, because you're doing not exactly the same amount of things, but kind of, it's made a bit shorter, but it's still kind of, you're doing almost, it felt like we were doing quite more stuff than we did with a 4-player game.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about gameplay.
Yeah.
Because or did you want to add something about?
No, we can talk about the gameplay and how the different player counts feel in that.
I like both player counts, but 4 felt a bit long, even though it took 90 minutes. So we're going to talk about the gameplay stuff.
Yes.
I'm just going to briefly say the first thing, and you can go into the second thing.
Go.
Because this game, the core concepts are very simple.
Yeah.
This is one of those games that if you are used to playing board games, you will read these rules and be like, oh, this doesn't sound that complicated, or this doesn't sound heavy, or this doesn't sound like it's going to be deep or anything like that. Even though when I read this rulebook, like sometimes I read a rulebook, I'm just going to go back to that, and I get this like cozy feeling when I read about mechanisms because I'm weird and I like board games so much. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I'm a weird person. But yeah, I read this mechanism like, oh, this is fun, this one's fun, this looks fun. And in this one I had that many times. So hopefully in this part of the video, we will see if that was good or right or not. But yeah, core concepts, very simple.
Yes, and even though it's simple to grasp the rules, it absolutely has a depth to the game because there's so many things and possibilities you can do. There's I tried like summing up all my thoughts on like my decision for choosing an action spot. And it's so many things. Like first off, it's the 2 actions, sometimes 3. Sometimes you want to see, okay, where can I build a building? I want to set myself up so I can do that. And also you don't want to make like opportunities for your opponent that are really good. And also you could put out these, I don't know what's called intersections, which basically gives you a bonus when you or somebody else goes to that action space.
Yeah, you kind of own that action space.
That is really cool. And
I
sometimes,
love that.
Yeah, and sometimes you do actions like moving the tram or placing cobblestones or building these buildings. I'm going to call it build buildings twice. That doesn't make sense.
One of them is like, it's called public buildings, and the other are you're building the houses.
Okay. So that gives you more bonuses basically. And sometimes you move up some tracks and those give you more bonuses. So it's so much things to go into that one decision of where to place.
But I think that is one of the most interesting aspects of the game. I love games, and I'm going to quote this game again. Federation last year.
Yeah.
Was a game where it's like there's like 16 different reasons to place a worker.
Yeah.
And this game kind of feels like that as well, because I really want to build that building, because building a building at the end of the turn is going to give you some bonuses and victory points. And the farther into the game you go, the more victory points you're going to get for building. Some games are like the earlier you do things, you get more.
Yes.
But here, like the building buildings is getting more and more and more victory points throughout the game. And many times in this game, I'm going to be like, oh, I want to do those 2 actions. That's going to be great. And then it's my turn. It's like, oh, I can do those 2 actions. But then if I place there, then you're going to get 2 bonuses because I place on your intersection. And I'm not going to get a building. But next turn, it's your turn. You can place there and you can build that super building and get many bonus points. Yes. And then I'm going to do something maybe less good because I really want to build that building. But maybe only one of the 2 actions is the one I really wanted to do.
Yes.
And those decisions, like, I love that. And in this game, it's to the point where it's almost too much. And it's very interesting because it's so simple. Like, the rules are this is one of those games I would say is like a low complexity, like in rules complexity. Like, the heaviness of this game doesn't come from the rules.
No, I agree.
But we're getting to the point where there's AP problems.
Yes, because that's why the 2-player games that we've had been so long.
Yeah.
Because we need a lot of time to think, and we have some friends that we think that we can't play this game with because it's gonna take 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I would say that. How many minutes did the 4-player game take?
The first one, or
no, not
after
the first
that?
time.
Yeah, after that it took like 90 minutes, a bit more, between 90 and 100 minutes.
That is not bad for a 4-player game.
No. The problem is, and we can take that here now.
Yes.
It's kind of, this is the thing. This is one of the things that is kind of like a negative of the game. It isn't it's a negative for some people.
Yes.
And that is that turns are long. We are getting used to more and more games being like, oh, I'm doing this action and it's your turn. And they're micro actions, and this one is like the opposite. Not that. It's so weird because the decision of what you want to do is over half of the round. And when you play this, or if you play it with people who don't like try to maximize, it's probably going to be shorter. And then this can be like a 75-minute game for many people, maybe 60 minutes with 2 people. But I think that the turns are so long, so it's kind of easy to lose interest in what the other people are doing. And even though it's very important what the other people are doing.
And that also makes it very hard to plan when it's not your turn, because you're
things
trying
change
to
a
do
lot.
that, but things change a lot. And what another player does may block some opportunities for you, or open some new up that you hadn't even considered.
Yeah, because even though you might have a plan, that this is my plan, and it's like, oh,
But you did
but
that.
look over here, that's going to be very interesting. That is different. And that opening up
My brain goes like that all of the time in this game.
So basically, if you are a person who like to maximize and optimize things, then this it's very interesting. But it also takes some time, just so you know that.
Yeah.
So I think like 4 players, and it's weird because 90 minutes isn't long.
No.
But it felt a bit long because you are waiting a little bit.
Yes.
And it's just behind that point where, and it might have been just my mood or like, but it was just past that part where my brain managed to focus on what the other people were doing.
Yeah, I agree.
But my mind is also like this, so like this. This is my mind.
But I think we've covered that.
Yes.
Talking
Check.
about some other stuff, I think the citizen track is really interesting in this game.
Love it.
Because there are 3 scorings during the game, and how when buildings get built and you fill this track up with citizens, they will trigger those scorings. So, and it also depending on the citizen track, it gives you points on what you build. So
Love it.
The timing of that is really cool, I think.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like, these are tactical choices. Like much of this game is strategical, because you have like goals and all of that, and these scorings, which are kind of strategies. But then things change, and you're going to come to your turn and go, oh, that's an opening and stuff like that. Because these 3 tracks, there's like 3 tracks, and there's 1 track of each person, and then there's 3 sections, and when you fill up one of the tracks in one section, you're going to trigger the scoring. The other thing is that throughout these 3 tracks, there's points written all along, and when you build a building, the lowest visible score is what you're going to get. So sometimes when I can see like, oh, but if I use a blue and a green for this building, I'm going to cover up those two lowest one, and suddenly I get 4 more points for building my building because things have changed like that. And that is a very nice thing, and it's very different. I haven't seen it done in that way before.
I agree.
And the scorings is like basic. No, it's actually pretty cool that as well.
Yeah.
Like the scoring is also actually pretty new.
It is.
Because
you're multiplying.
Yes, explain, please.
So you want to go up on the Cerda track, as you explained in the beginning of this review.
Yes.
And depending on how far up you are on that track, you are multiplying your points in the scorings in the game, which is really cool. And some of the easier buildings to build moves you up on that track. But if you're going to build the more advanced buildings, I would
level 2
say,
and level 3 buildings,
houses, then you get some other bonuses, but you move down on the Cerda tracks.
the Cerda tracks. What I really like, and I think that's interesting, because let's say there's a thing that's like 2 points for each large road that you build. And maybe I build 3 roads, and that's going to be like 6 points. And I look at the track and I see, and I am at the 3 multiplier. That means I score 18 points. So I score that 3 times.
Yes.
I don't think I've seen that in many other games as well.
No.
So you can kind of, and that's going to reset. So you're like, okay, I don't care for the first one. Maybe I do other stuff and I try to move up. Or I don't care about the last one and stuff like that. You also have one of my favorite mechanisms in games, which is make your own kind of scoring. Yes. You have, and this is also different. It's also unique.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit, as you said, and it reminds you and me a bit about Nippon.
Yeah.
Which has this place where you get multipliers and you get like, oh, I get a times 3. Which of the scorings do I want to have times 3? And you have to choose that. And here you have like different spaces of your player board, and this one says like, oh, you're going to score it 2 times this one or 3 times this one. And when you get these scoring tiles, you place it in one of the slots. You usually have to pay something to place it there. But the double cool thing is that you can then upgrade that scoring to score even more times. So, for example, again, it kind of works in exactly the same way as the Cerda tracks. And you trying to choose the ones that you want to do a lot, and then get that in the highest one and to upgrade that. But you don't have time to do a lot of stuff. And I like choose your own scoring or make your own scoring, and I like it a lot in this game.
Yes, and all of those things, the scorings of the round and the order that the individual scorings come out, but also how the buildings are placed, because you can randomize not the buildings but the action spaces.
Yeah.
So where what actions you do at the intersection, it makes it a very variable game.
Yes.
I feel like, because all of our games have felt different in like what you want to focus on depending on all those variabilities.
You're doing like the same kind of things,
yes,
but what is important and what you're going to score is different. And depending on the scoring you get, the Cerda scoring, there's also 5 public buildings in each game, and there's 7 in the box, so you get to have different variations of those as well. One thing, let's talk a bit let's go back to player count.
Yes.
Because this game felt very different at 2 and 4 players.
Yeah, it might be how we played, because I don't know, but it's more opportunities to block your opponent when you're just playing 2, I feel like.
Yes.
Because when you're playing with 4, there's gonna be a lot of workers on the board.
Citizens.
Citizens.
Cities in the city.
The words. I'm just going back to stuff and things.
There's gonna be a lot of stuff on the stuff.
Simple.
Stuff on the thing on the stuff.
Yeah, so you have more opportunities, I feel like, to do the actions that you want to do and still get to build a building. But with 2 players, you can more deliberately block your opponent.
Yeah.
That's what you did to me, at least.
It's kind of like 2-sided, because with 4 people, it's going to be more spaces that are blocked.
Yeah.
So it's going to be less opportunity to kind of do the actual action you want to do.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's going to be way easier to build a building. Because when we play 2 players, you can play it kind of, oh, but if I place here, and I get to build that building, then you have to do that, which you probably don't want to do. If you want to build a building, that's the only place you can place those 2 spaces, and that is way easier with 2 players. So it felt like, I don't want to call it mean, I wrote like mean in the inner notes, but it's like it's meaner, it can be meaner. You can kind of say, okay, you can build a building, but then you have to do these actions. So kind of like putting that you get to choose between these two bad options.
Yeah.
In a very interesting way, which I don't. So it feels, unlike many games, it felt very different at 2 and 4 people.
Yes, and it isn't really a punishing game. It is a little tight on the resources. When you do one, it is a game that says,
it is a game.
Look at all this cool stuff you can do. Then it feels horrible to be like, oh, I have to get the coins that I need, because there are ways to get coins and the things that you need, but you have to choose to do those actions.
Yes.
And I don't want to do that boring action.
No.
I want to do the cool stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get, because everything costs resources or money, so it's a little tight, but it's not punishing tight.
No, it's
like a very positive game in that sort of way.
And it's, as you said, it's kind of like, do you want to do this thing that's pretty good, or this thing that's pretty good, or this thing that's bad? Like, you kind of have to choose between these, or which one is best. There's kind of tiny bit of luck. It's almost to the point where I don't need to mention it, but it's a tiny bit of luck, because you're drawing these citizens from the bag most of the time. It's not going to be a problem, and also it's going to change the length of the game.
Yeah.
If all people end up drawing a lot of these red, there's kind of the same amount of them in the bag almost, or if anybody ends up placing the red on top and everybody uses the red, the game is going to end quicker. But other than that, like, it's a tiny thing. Or like the last time we played, I did win with like 30 points anyway, so it didn't really matter. But if I drew a blue person out of the bag, then I would be able to build another big building and get like 20 more points.
Yeah.
But because I didn't, I was not able to build any building, and I lost like 13 points on that. But those are like super small situations, and I don't think it's going to be something that, it's not going to be, oh, that lost you the game or that ended that, because it's not going to happen most of the time. And then again, it's kind of like you've been set up to that throughout the game.
I think it's fun because when you do so much combos sometimes on your turn, you can get a lot of points on your turn, and it looks like one person has the lead by a lot.
Yeah.
But then all of the other has their turn, and they're right beside you on the points track.
And somebody's going for end of game scoring.
Yes.
There's so many ways to get points. So who do you think this game is for?
I think it's a fairly easy to learn game with simple rules, but it's a very tasty game.
Tasty game.
Meaty.
Yes.
Juicy.
Juicy, meaty.
So I think that if you want to dive into a Euro game that has a lot of stuff to think about, but not very complicated rules, I think this might be the one.
And we have kind of forgotten, I think, to do like the weight of the game for a little while now.
Yeah.
I would say that this is going into being a heavier game because of all the decisions. It's not that brain burning because of the rules, but the decision makes it a heavier experience, I think.
I would call this a medium game.
You would? You also call like Riverboat a medium game, which is way lighter than this, and Riders of the Ganges. I would call this like a
medium plus.
I would call this like a medium heavy game. Like it's in the heavier category for me. Yeah. But it's like if you have Cerda in the heavy, and you have like these other Riders of the Ganges and that, which I call like my perfect medium games, I would say it's closer to being up here than it is to be down there for me.
Yeah, I just think that if...
normal people.
Yeah, I just think that because this isn't a very punishing game, you can play this game without optimizing and then
Absolutely.
it is very simple to learn.
Very
so I
simple.
think that how much you will let your brain calculate really decides how much there is to think about in this game. So I will say medium rare to continue my meat.
Yes.
Streak.
So, do you want to do some final thoughts for Barcelona?
Yes. I think it's a very fun game.
Fun.
I have so much fun while playing this game but I also hurt in my brain because I want to maximize all the things that I do. The main negative for me is that I get a little uninterested when people are taking long turns, and especially when it is Johannes's turn. You have just like the other person is finished. Now you will do something, and you haven't even started doing stuff.
No.
I don't know what I can be interested in because
true.
you have to think so much. Not you specifically,
No, but
everybody.
yeah.
So that's my main complaint with this game. Other than that, I think it's a super fun game. So I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's great.
I think it's great, like an 8. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic game. This is one of the best Euro games I've played this year so far. The first time I played it, I liked it, and then after that, it just went up. I love how it makes me feel. As you said, like that's the only thing is that, and if we were to play it, like if you're the same group, and I think if you play it 5-10 times with the same people, it's gonna be easier to
Yes.
get bit snappier decisions. But because there's so many different choices, that part of the game I don't think is gonna go away, especially not for our group and our kind of
Yeah.
people. But for me, all the reasons we talked about already. If you just skip to this, watch the review, and you can see the reasons why I love this. I love the placement. I love the building, the choices of placing for building or for the best actions, where to place your intersections so that you can get special bonuses when people do them, or you want to do that, so you can place it somewhere you want to do the stuff. The tracks, the scoring, everything makes me happy. This is one of those games that I really liked. I am going to give it a 9.
Cool.
Which I think might be one of the highest ratings of a Eurogame this year for me
think
so
so.
far.
Yes.
Fantastic game. If you enjoy the kind of game that we enjoy, it's kind of like back to Who Is It For, I think you will enjoy this game,
Yes.
basically. So you know those caveats that we talked about in this one, and if those are deal breaks for you, then you know it. If they're not, then I think you will like this. And that's the end of another video.
Yes.
Yet again, it's the end. If you enjoy what we do and you haven't done so yet, you can help us out in a big way, which is easy for you and it's big for us, and that is by giving us a victory point.
And we get victory points when you click that subscribe button, and you can also click the bell to get notifications every time we post a new video.
And that's the end of this video. I'm Johannes.
I'm Cinema.
And you've been watching Board Gaming Ramblings, and bye-bye.